Muslim armies. We've heard a lot from groups such as one that's recently been prescribed here in the UK, Hizb ut-Tahrir, for example, that they should call on Muslim armies to take up arms or whatever in order to help the Palestinians in Gaza. Some have criticized this role and they said that Muslim armies, they're fulfilling their current role, you know? The so-called Muslim armies, they're doing their role. They're working for the authoritarians who do subcontracting for the ex-colonizers, so to speak. Where do you stand on this call for moving the Muslim armies to work for the Ummah and for Palestine?
As a Muslim is always opposed to war unless it's absolutely necessary. The Prophet Muhammad said, no Muslim should seek war, but if the enemy comes, stand firm. And Salah ad-Din Ayyubi said, beware the business of blood, for blood never forgets. He was telling his people who perhaps were happy at all the victories that don't celebrate the shedding of blood. Shedding of blood is something no Muslim looks for. And if ever there was a situation where there was a battle or war, it's not something the Muslim enjoys. It's important to emphasize this. And that's why I think that when it comes to this matter, if I thought that the Muslim armies mobilizing was the only way to liberate Palestine, or let me rephrase that, to end this genocide, then everybody would be making the call and I would agree with it. My issue with what's taking place in Palestine in terms of the genocide is that you don't need any Muslim army to mobilize towards Gaza in order to end the genocide. There's so many economic and diplomatic moves that the Ummah has at its disposal that could stop the genocide tomorrow. My issue with genocide is that the greatest tragedy is not that it's taking place, even though that's a tragedy. The greatest tragedy is that power, diplomatic and economic power, exists in the Ummah that could be deployed tomorrow that could end the genocide. And I'll give you an example. When Trump imposed the tariffs on China, and imposed the tariffs generally, and on the European Union, Macron summoned all of the French companies into an emergency meeting, the ones that were investing in America. And he said to them that I forbid you from investing in America because, quote, what message does it send when you're investing and giving money to an enemy that is attacking us, to someone that is attacking us? My point was, he was saying, what idiot gives money to somebody who is bringing harm to us? Apply that to the Ummah. What fool gives $3.4 trillion to the nation that's enabling the genocide? What message does it send? If you told the Americans that I'm halting my investments in the US, recalling my ambassadors, that I am raising the oil prices, I'm going to play with those gas prices that I've done before. Why? Because I'm going to make you pay a price for this genocide. There's no way I'm allowing it to happen. As King Faisal said, we can live on our dates and our camels. You're the ones who can't live without the oil and the like. We're willing to do so for Palestine and Gaza. If Turkey suspended trade with the Israelis and said there's no way I'm doing it, if UAE reversed normalization of ties, followed by Saudi Arabia, normalization via Bahrain, if they ordered Bahrain that they kicked into normalization and told them you need to reverse, and Morocco reversed normalization, and Sudan reversed normalization, although those who are trying to lobby, they reverse normalization of ties. I think that if you embarked on a number of these diplomatic measures, and then they collectively came in and said to the Europeans that we'll also withdraw our ambassadors from Europe as well in protest, the same way that Turkey withdrew its ambassador from Paris when French Parliament passed a law recognizing the Armenian genocide, the same way that UAE withdrew its ambassador from Lebanon when George Qardahi, the media minister, criticized their role in Yemen, the same way that bin Salman kicked out the Canadian ambassador from Saudi Arabia and suspended trade deals with Canada when the Canadian ambassador criticized the human rights record in Saudi Arabia. The same way that bin Salman ramped up oil prices when Biden said he's going to render him a pariah, bin Salman ramped up oil prices 2 weeks before the midterm elections to make sure that the Democrats took a hit because he said, you want to treat me like a pariah? Let me show you what I can do in order to pressure you. I think if you were to embark on these measures, I think that if the Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, when China is starting to move away from the Americans because of the tariffs, when they cancel their Boeing contracts, I think if Anwar Ibrahim hadn't come in and said to Boeing that, oh, if China are cancelling, I'll buy those Boeing contracts to you, for you as well. I'll buy those Boeing planes in order to appease Donald Trump. When Blinken goes and visits Malaysia or goes visits Laos or Cambodia or wherever that ASEAN meeting took place, and Anwar Ibrahim in the same breath says, I condemn what you're doing in Gaza, but can we do business on semiconductors because we can be an alternative to Taiwan and we're ready to work with Americans in this regard, and you shake hands with Blinken and they're smiling, wearing the traditional clothing. I think if Anwar Ibrahim says the way Mahathir once upon a time said, I know he doesn't like the comparison between the two, the way Mahathir used to say, no, I'm going to shut I'm not going to allow the Israelis to participate. I'm going to make a stand on this regard. I think if the Muslim leaders collectively said, this is a red line for us, the way that the Crown Prince Abdullah bin Abdulaziz Al Saud, when he was Crown Prince in 2001, he later became king, when he withdrew the Saudi ambassador from the US over the Bush's support for Israel during the Second Intifada, when he cancelled the military exercises, cancelled the military meetings and training, and sent a letter to Bush telling him this is a decisive moment in our relations. We are willing to break our whole US relationship if you don't get the Israelis to stop attacking the Palestinians after the second. And Bush panics and stops the Israelis in the Second Intifada, which is why Yasser Arafat thanked the Saudis after the Second Intifada, because he knew it was the Saudi threat that got Bush to get the Israelis to back off the Palestinians. I think if they deployed those diplomatic and economic measures, and on top of that, stopped reassuring the genocider that there's a future for them in the region, even if they continue the genocide. Think about it. When the UAE refuses to reverse normalization, what they're saying is, genocide is not a red line. I see a future for you here. When Saudi Arabia refuses to close the airspace, if you open Flight Radar now and you look at the flights from Tel Aviv to Dubai, you'll find that they are, up until 2 weeks ago, still flying over Saudi airspace. The only reason they're not flying over Saudi airspace is because of the missiles taking place recently, but they're still flying over Saudi airspace. The Saudi Crown Prince, despite the genocide, has not shut the airspace, refused to withdraw the billions of dollars of investment that he's put into the Israelis through Jared Kushner's investment fund. He's still allowing Israeli YouTubers and journalists to go visit the gates of Medina Munawwara and to record themselves doing so. He's still allowing Israeli delegations to visit Saudi Arabia. He's still allowing the Israelis delegations to come and visit Saudi Arabia and to go and traverse the country and participate in sports tournaments like the Dakar Rally and the EA Sports. When you look at all of these that's taking place during the genocide, what message is it sending that when the Israelis launch their ground offensive on Gaza, bin Salman, when he's being asked by people to cancel the Riyadh season, instead he brings Shakira to dance on the night that the Israelis embarked on their ground offensive in Gaza? What does it mean when the genocide is taking place and Erdogan refuses to cut the trade and only limits trade, not cuts it off, limits trade, when he loses 10 cities in the municipality because he's telling the Israelis that my people are angry, can you stop the genocide? I'm not going to cut the trade, but I have to do something because my people punished me in the election, because my people said to me that even if it means bringing the seculars back in power, we don't want to abandon Palestine. We're going to punish you by making you lose 10 cities in the municipality elections. My issue is not just the diplomatic and economic power that they have to deploy. It's that there is a consistent reassuring of the Israelis that no matter what they do, these Muslim nations will not compromise trade, they will not compromise money, they will not compromise military ties. Morocco is still doing military exercises openly with the Israelis, and the Americans are saying that if Americans are upset over Gaza, the Muslim leaders don't seem to be having much of a problem with it in terms of the genocide that's happening. If you got all these leftists and you got all these white Americans and MAGA who are now upset over American involvement in Gaza, the Muslim leaders are telling me that's not really a red line and it's not really compromising normalization of ties. What did Biden say before the elections in November? He said, you guys keep saying that Muslim leaders are angry over Gaza, but the Saudis are telling us they're ready to normalize as long as we give them nuclear technology and as long as we give them a NATO-style security agreement and as long as we give them support for Vision 2030. What's the message that they're receiving? When Francine Lacroix of Bloomberg interviews Netanyahu and says, how can you normalize with Saudi without a Palestinian state? And he laughs and he says, they're not mentioning it as much as you think they're mentioning it. It's not on the table as much as you think it's being presented on the table. When Netanyahu laughs at Erdogan and says to him that he calls me Hitler but expands the trade ties with me as well. He calls me Hitler during bad times, but during good times, but when he's in bad times, he comes running to me to try for better ties because he's stuck in the Mediterranean and he's stuck in his relationship with Israel and the like. When you see the UAE, who was Abdullah bin Zayed, who is repeating a position that even the Israelis are no longer saying. The Israelis are no longer saying the war ends when the hostages are released. They're saying we'll continue even if the hostages are released. Abdullah bin Zayed still hasn't got the memo. He's still saying the war ends when the hostages are released, essentially showing no regard whatsoever for what's happening in the Palestinians. My issue is that you don't need the armies to move. You just need these people to stop reassuring the genociders that it's not a red line. You need to stop these guys, these leaders, from telling the Israelis that I really want to have good ties with you, like the way bin Salman said in Politico. I want to have good ties with you, but I might be assassinated if I normalize right now because of the genocide. But I love you guys. I'd love to normalize ties. It's just my people are a bit angry right now because of your genocide. Now's not the right time to normalize. Not I can't normalize with genociders. Now's not the right time to normalize. And I think that's the issue that you have here, in that It's the sense of, if I believe that the armies need to mobilize, the armies don't need to mobilize. You've got so many tools at your disposal to end the genocide tomorrow, but you choose not to use it. Why? Because as far as the Muslim leaders are concerned, across the board, Gaza is not worth jeopardizing trade ties. Why would I compromise my trade relations with Israel for Gaza? It's almost as if the Muslim leaders are saying, what idiot would suggest that? How stupid are you to believe that I should cut ties with the Israelis over what? Genocide in Gaza. How stupid are you to think that I should jeopardize my relations with the genocide enablers in Washington for the sake of Palestinians? For them. Are you politically stupid? Are you politically dumb? Are you silly? You want me to jeopardize my population's ability to buy an iPhone for the sake of Palestine and Gaza. You want us, our currency, to be affected because of potential sanctions, because of Gaza. Then we will be unable to buy 3-bedroom homes. We'll have to buy 1-bedroom homes. What's wrong with you? Are you stupid? You want to compromise our way of life, our ability to get on trains easily, and our ability to go and buy and go to the shopping mall and to go and eat for the sake of Palestinians in Gaza? The Imam will say to you, you want me to jeopardize my Umrah and Hajj for Gaza, for Palestinians? You want to jeopardize my ibadah for the sake of a genocide in Gaza? It's not my responsibility. I don't want to call out the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman for complicity in genocide. I don't want to do that. I don't want to go in front of the Saudi embassy and tell the Mohammed bin Salman, move and do something. You want to compromise my Umrah? I've got a group I need to take in the summer. I've got a group that I need to take. I make a lot of my money from it. Why should I jeopardize that for it too? Didn't the Prophet Muhammad say that the blood of the Muslim is dearer than the bricks of the Kaaba? The bricks of the Kaaba are dearer to me than the blood of the Muslim. He's flipped it. Labbaik Allahumma labbaik. Bin Salman is putting concerts in Jeddah while the Hajj season is going on. You don't need to denounce the munkar. Just say Labbaik Allahumma labbaik, Labbaik Allahumma labbaik, and then go and make tawbah afterwards. Everything's become so twisted. Everything's become so twisted whereby to do what is good is called stupid and unwise, and to do evil is considered to be smart and clever and genius. It's like in Tunisia, I remember during the Arab Spring period, it was like, you know, when you want to praise someone, you call him a wolf, a tha'lab, you call him a fox. And you're like, why is that praise? You're like, it's because he can do it and get away with it. We no longer celebrate people who do what's right because it's right. It's almost like we don't believe Allah will deliver us if we do something that is just and if we do something that is right. And that is why when you talk about the military armies, we're not even doing the basics yet. As Muslim rulers are not even doing the basics yet. We talk about boycott. There are Muslim nations setting their imams loose like rabid dogs on their population to say to their population, how dare you boycott without the permission of the ruler? How dare you boycott KFC? How dare you boycott Coca-Cola? Why would you do that? Why would you impact our economy? Why would you impact the economy of your brother who went and paid the franchise fee to Coca-Cola and now he can't get his money back? Surely you should be buying his Coca-Cola so at least the brother can get his money back. You're like, we're trying to get him to stop buying the Coca-Cola. Who gave you permission to do so? And the Imam gives you a khutbah over it about ta'at wali al-amr. And that's why I argue that the greatest allies of those who are complicit in the genocide are not liberals or secular. You've seen them here in the UK. You've been to the protests. Look at all these liberals and seculars who are protesting for Palestine. The greatest allies of those who are complicit in genocide are imams. Imams who are looking at those who are heartbroken and begging the rulers to do something for Gaza, and they're coming out and denouncing those people as people of fitna, and denouncing those people as people who are unwise politically, and people who have no idea how to respect the ruler and the like. Whereas the ruler is squandering the resources of the ummah while you watch our Palestinians get killed, while you watch our people, brothers and sisters get killed, while you watch them get slaughtered, their legs blown off, their heads blown off, entire villages burnt, you see it all being demolished, and you see the power the ummah has to stop it, and they choose not to do so because of wahan, because of comfort, because they desire to establish a comfortable economy. Because if you're going to tell me to fight for Gaza, show me a comfortable way to do it. Don't show me a way of struggle. He will read in the masjid about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He'll read with a Dajjalic eye. He will read how the whole life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a life of struggle in which he chooses the path of struggle in order to rescue you from dhulumat ila nur. He compromises his comfort in the dunya so we could be Muslim and go to Jannah. We all go sadaqallah al-azim and then we walk out of the masjid now looking with the other eye and saying, yeah, that's cool, but I'm not going to compromise my own comfort for Palestine and the like. And this is why I think that the reality is that the greatest allies of those who are complicit in genocide are imams who tell you that Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahr anil Munkar have now become fitna, that the bricks of the Kaaba are dearer than the blood of the Muslim, and who tell you that the Ummah is weak, whereas the Ummah has never been weak. Allah has always given it resources. It's always been about our willingness to deploy that resources. And that's why I think that the challenge today is, how do we get these resources back into the hands of the Ummah? How do we break the Israeli border in Sirt? How do we break the Israeli border in Cairo? How do we break the Israeli border in Abu Dhabi? How do we break the Israeli border in Riyadh? How do we bring those borders back into those occupation borders so that we can restore the equilibrium of Palestinians versus the Israelis? Because as the map stands right now, the borders of Greater Israel span from Sirt in the west to Abu Dhabi in the east and to Jordan in the north. And I think that is the tragedy of what we're facing today.